there's that phrase in today's gospel that kind of catches your ear. You think as humans do. And well, last I checked, we are still all human. And we think, and we find that there are times when we get pulled and tugged in different ways, things that kind of catch our attention, maybe about family or the community as a whole, maybe about the experience of pressures we feel, that like day-to-day living at work or with money, concerned about maybe our home, being able to maintain our homes, or looking ahead to retirement, or making our retirements work for us. Maybe people are concerned about uncertainty, like all the experiences of violence in the world, the places where there's war and strife going on. Maybe people are worried about, let's say, the elections, or maybe people are worried. Maybe some people are worried about very, very everyday things, like what's going on with their football team this weekend. People are consumed with all kinds of worries, some very, very large, others very, very pointed and personal. So I guess it is something about we often see things in very human ways, because it seems like the world kind of like just touches us and crushes in around us and envelops us all the time. But Jesus, let's say, we find ourselves in the gospel shortly after Jesus has fed the multitudes on the hillside, and he's talking with the disciples, and I guess he wants to see what they're thinking, what's in their hearts. He asks them, well, who do people say that I am? And he starts getting this laundry list of responses. Well, some people think you're the Baptist, or they think you're Elijah or one of the prophets. Well, okay, but who do you say that I am? Jesus gets a little more pointed with them. Who do you say that I am? And Peter chimes right in, you are the Christ. But they get into a conversation about what that might mean. But basically that conversation lands on the point that Jesus is calling the disciples to follow him. Now, we've heard that before, and we've thought about that before. We've considered what following Jesus means. But I think there's maybe something just to take a little bit deeper on this, because, well, that whole thought about, say, you think only as humans do. Well, Jesus is inviting the disciples to stay with him, be with him, walk with him, see as he sees, respond as he responds. And we find that this is something they begin to take to heart. They spend time with Jesus. In fact, didn't we recently have a gospel where Jesus sent the disciples out 2 by 2 to go out among the people, to pray with them, to heal them, to offer them forgiveness? And they came back. And when they came back, my gosh, they were like little children. They were so bubbling with excitement. They were overflowing with the experiences they had. They had to tell Jesus, as if he was there. You had to know, Lord, all those things you told us. Imagine Jesus sitting them down, maybe over a meal, and letting them just talk. Now, maybe you, as a parent, might really recognize your experiences with sisters and brothers, or with your children, and you see the things you've put out there come back to you like that. It's a very special moment. Parents tell me about that all the time. And I wonder very much, let's say, if we can see Jesus maybe enjoying a moment like that too with the disciples. But it says something about how Jesus' words and his spirit and his guidance are really taking root with the disciples. They're really taking root. And that brings me to a thought. For all the things we experience in the world, for all the pressures we endure, for all the things we encounter, the more we have Jesus in our hearts, in our minds, we will have Jesus in our actions. It's as if Jesus planted in our hearts sets roots, and how shall I say this, takes over the garden, okay? Much like, let's say, when you're maybe doing a little gardening, or you're working in your home, and something gets into the lawn or gets into the garden, you want to see good things spread. And you might be looking to uproot other things that don't belong there. The pressures of the world, will they disappear? Well, no, they won't. Let's be realistic, they won't. But with Jesus in your heart, Jesus taking up more and more of your heart, more and more of your mind, Jesus really being at the center of your life and your soul, these other things can be more on the periphery. They can be less important, because with Jesus at the center of your life, you have guidance on how to follow, how to live. And with Jesus also, we know we have the coming of the Spirit, who's there to guide us, the Paraclete, giving us all that we can take and put into practice in our lives. With Jesus, the Spirit, we are able to respond to the world, to make the world a new place in the image and likeness of God. And all the things that are pressures to us, Jesus shows us how to respond. How to respond. It's interesting that all this is going on. We just remember every now and then, that if we let Jesus into our hearts and lives, it changes us so completely. Perhaps then it takes us back to that first phrase I kind of brought to you. You think as humans do. But the gospel goes on to say, but not as God does. The more we have Jesus in our hearts and minds and souls, the more we begin to see the world more as God does. And that helps to guide and shape our decisions too. The way we choose to live our lives, the way we share Jesus with others, the way we can kind of help address the woundedness and the hungers and thirsts of a world that calls out so much for everything that God has to offer, that His Son and His Spirit look to bring to us, that we can go and share it with our sisters and brothers, with our neighbors, with our families, with the world. All these good things we are called to do this day and every day, because Jesus comes into our hearts, we follow Him, we take Him to heart. It pushes other things out of the way, and it really transforms the whole world in His name. And that's something we can do